Hi, I'm Tammy, and this is All Things Bourbon. Today I'm going to talk to you about Makers Mark and the Samuels family. The Samuels family, the Makers Mark history starts in Laredo, Kentucky with Bill Sr. and his wife Margie. And they were a family that he was the master distiller, and she was his partner in image and all things that made up Maker's Mark that wasn't part of the drink. Bill Sr., he had been what they thought was a fourth generation distiller, and his wife Margie, she came up with this whole this branding is what we would call it today. But then she did a circle and a star and an S and an IV in Roman numerals for 4 to mark all their bottles as special. Um, the Makers Mark, all of that, the S, it stands for the Samuels family, and the star stands for the Star family farm that they lived on, and the 4 was supposed to represent fourth generation distiller. And so then they found out that he was actually the 6th, but they already had the 4th on everything, and that brand stuck, and they still use it to this day. So she had this unique thing that she made on these bottles that you won't find on any other bottles. And then Bill Sr., he had, being a 4th or 6th generation, as he actually was, distiller, he decided that he wanted a bourbon that would not knock your ears off. And so I guess that his family's recipe was not for his liking, and he ended up starting to create new mash bills, and he started cooking breads and using different breads, and he came up with a soft winter wheat instead of a rye for his mash bill. So the Maker's Mark, after their ingredient of corn, they use a soft winter wheat. And so Margie, she came up with Maker's Mark. It was something that was used when a pewter someone that's a professional pewter maker, they would stamp something with an MM and give it their Maker's Mark, meaning it was their best work. So she was genius in using that term of Maker's Mark to show that this was her husband's best work in the products that they put out. So they had a lot of pride in that. And then for Margie, she was quite a leader to even be part of the bourbon world, to use branding when before branding was a thing for most people. So she picked the bottle shape and made it distinct. So when you see Maker's Mark, it sticks out. It has its own shape. It has its own waxed top. It has its own paper cut label. It has the the star thing here. So she made her product and her husband's product stand out. And so he made the bourbon, and she promoted it and did the dippings and everything like in her. And she also is credited for having guests out. So they would be making the bourbon there at the distillery, and it's a beautiful grounds. You have to go see the Maker's Mark tour. It's just go out there if you can't get a tour. But they have this neat gift shop that you can actually hand dip your own bottles, and they have their grounds. She would spend, for every money that he spent on the distillery, she would spend on the grounds beautifying them. And I have just a paper picture here, but she has this distinct, the red shutters on all of their buildings, and then she has a lot of their branding, their star on, like in windows and stained glass and different things around the place. But it's just a whole experience going out there. There's beautiful streams running, the buildings are beautiful. And so she had her place, and they both ended up inducted into the Kentucky Bourbon Hall of Fame, and she was the first woman, so that was quite an accomplishment. But what makes Maker's Mark special, besides their beautiful grounds and their partnership of starting a business together, is that they use the winter wheat and the limestone water. Limestone water is famous in Kentucky. Everybody uses that. It's one of their secret, wonderful ingredients. And then they had a 150-year heirloom yeast strain But when you go in and you're taking the tour, you go into this, all of their buildings are really pretty. You go in and they have this big fermentation tank, but it is made out of cypress wood, where other distilleries have all these stainless steel tanks. And they have to take a lot longer to clean. And they say that it doesn't have any effect on the taste, but it's just really cool that they do everything from the way that Bill Sr. and Margie started it when they started the Maker's Mark line. And so they have a double barrel distillation. They had a barrel, a distillation that was copper, and then they made a replica of it and did the double distillation. And even that is a pretty piece in there. It's like everything they did was methodical in how it looked and how it worked and what it produced. And so then every distillery picks like what kind of char they're going to do inside their oak barrel. And they do a number 3 char, and then they do something extra special. They have to make their barrels sit out for 9 months in the elements, and they make them go through at least a summer, and they want to get rid of all the bitter tannins. They believe it takes all the bitterness out of the wood of the oak. And so then they do that number 3 char inside, and then they do something that all the distilleries used to do, but they still rotate their 525-pound barrels by hand. And all Maker's Mark has to spend at least 3 hot summers in the upper rickhouse, and they said that helps it gain color and flavor. So they rotate them, and most of them they do everything to taste, not to time. So most of their bourbons will be 6 to 7 years old to get the taste that they want. But if they're ready earlier or they need to go longer, then they do that. But they do not just pick an age and barrel something. So then, of course, that unique they still hand dip these things, and you can do your own in the gift shop. The gift shop is a lot of fun. You can go make a video or take some pictures and dip your own. And you pick your own bottle, and then you just go pay for it and stand in line and dip it. And my daughter dipped this one, and my husband did this one, and they had a real enjoyable time. And then their label that they have this. She came up with this something else that sets her product apart. This paper label, and they have a printing machine that makes the label. And then when it wore out, they had an exact replica made of it, and they still do printed labels to this day on a lot of their bottles. So she really, when you see a Maker's Mark bottle, you know that the product's going to be good, but you also know that you identify it. It's different than another bottle of bourbon. So it has this distinct look. So when Bill Sr. died, he passed his business down to his son, Bill Jr. in 1975. And supposedly his only advice was, don't screw up the whiskey. So Bill Jr., I guess, with blood, sweat, and tears, made the Maker's Mark 46 in 2010, and it was the first new product that Maker's Mark had had in over 50 years. So that was quite, for him to pass that and ended up getting something that they felt comfortable adding to their line, it just shows how they were committed to keeping a certain image and certain taste in their line of products. So then when Bill Jr., his son Rob, started working at the distillery, and he'd been going there since he was like 9 years old, and he said, son, don't screw up the whiskey. So that's the Samuels, I guess, family motto is don't screw up the whiskey. And then Mom had a lot of people think that Margie was maybe the reason that the tours began, because they said she was quite a hostess, and that the grounds are so beautiful that people love to come out there, and they think that she may have had a lot to do with why people started doing the bourbon tour. So kudos to her. Now the products that they have are the Maker's Mark Cask Strength, the 46, and then a private selection. I don't have all of them, a wood finishing series, but as far as taste with the wheat, a lot of people, the rye has a stronger taste. But the Maker's Mark, it's got its own heat. It's just a little bit, but it doesn't stay. That's my first taste, right? But It's nice to drink. It's a good bourbon, which is their bad bourbon. Probably. But not Maker's Mark. It's a good one. So if you like and subscribe this video, and happy Father's Day to my husband, who did not think I would make this video by myself. The best husband ever. And go see Maker's Mark. Go and see the grounds, take lots of pictures, and make lots of memories, and taste all their bourbon, enjoy their buildings, and go when the weather is nice, because you're going to walk a lot there, and you're going to want the weather to be nice, because there's a lot of ground to cover and a lot of fun to be had. Have a great day. Thanks.